I want you to imagine heading out to your local zoo for just a totally carefree weekend afternoon.
Right. Just a normal day out.
Exactly. You've got your camera ready. You're, looking forward to grabbing a soft pretzel, watching some animals, making fun memories.
Sounds perfect.
But the second you scan your ticket and walk through the gates, you are confronted by staff wearing these stark, highly visible red warning armbands.
Oh, wow. That is a visual.
Yeah, and you start noticing these strict no photography zones literally everywhere. And it is made abundantly clear that if you happen to post a picture to your social media that includes one of those marked employees in the background, the zoo will actively track your account and report you for a terms of service violation.
I mean, that creates an immediate chilling effect for the visitor.
Right.
You go from anticipating this relaxed stroll through a public park to feeling, well, hyper aware of exactly where your phone is pointing. Suddenly, the simple act of taking a photo feels like navigating a surveillance state.
It feels hostile. And that jarring shift in the daily visitor experience is exactly what we are unpacking in this deep dive today.
It's a huge shift.
It really is. We are looking at a massive controversy unfolding right now at the Ichikawa City Zoo in Japan. And at the heart of this entire story is this viral baby Japanese macaque named Punch, and the zoo's shocking decision to just outright ban photography of his human caretakers.
Which brings up the core debate dominating zoo communities and social media platforms right now. I mean, are these strict new digital boundaries actually destroying the guest experience?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Right. Or are they a necessary evolution of how public spaces just have to operate in an era where, everyone has a broadcasting studio in their pocket?
And we are going to explore how viral fame collides with wildlife care and ultimately analyze whether this unprecedented rule is actually good or bad for the visitors themselves.
Because before we can even really analyze the day-to-day guest experience, we have to understand the sheer scale of the phenomenon that forced the zoo's hand in the first place.
Yeah, you really can't grasp the controversy without understanding the biological crisis that started it all, which centers on this orphaned baby monkey and a wildly abrupt policy change.
Right. And to say Punch captured the internet's heart, it barely scratches the surface of this phenomena.
He was everywhere.
He really was. So he was born in July 2025, and tragically, his mother rejected him.
Oh, that's so sad.
It is. And that meant he had to be hand-raised by human zookeepers. But the specific visual that catapulted him to viral fame was that, for comfort, this tiny baby macaque clung to a plush orangutan toy.
A plush toy.
Yeah, literally dragging this toy around. And millions of people watch videos of this online.
I gotta say, just picturing that is incredibly endearing. I mean, it makes perfect sense why people all over the globe became instantly attached to him.
Of course.
But while the internet was collectively, cooing over a cute baby monkey, the zookeepers were staring down a terrifying logistical nightmare.
Oh, an absolute nightmare. Because Japanese macaques do not live in casual friend groups.
Right, they have a system.
A very rigid system. They live in these strict matrilineal societies. Your rank in their 56-member troop is inherited directly from your mother.
So an orphan like Punch, he doesn't just have low status.
No, he essentially doesn't exist in their social structure. He is at the absolute bottom.
Wow.
And macaque society is notoriously unforgiving. The mechanics of their communication are deeply nuanced, very physical. Like, to a human, making direct eye contact and smiling is friendly.
Yeah, basic politeness.
Right. But to a macaque, a stare and bared teeth is a literal declaration of war.
Oh, wow. Okay, completely different dialect.
Exactly. A mother macaque spends months teaching her baby these submissive lip smacks, or, the exact posture to use to look away from a dominant male to avoid a beating.
And human caretakers, no matter how skilled they are, they physically cannot teach a monkey those dialects.
They can't. If the zoo had just dropped Punch into the adult troop, he wouldn't just be ignored. He would face relentless bullying, severe injury, or he would simply starve because he wouldn't even be allowed near the food.
So they couldn't just throw him to the older monkeys, but they also obviously couldn't keep him isolated with a plush toy forever.
Right.
Which brings us to what the zoo called the kindergarten class strategy, which, when you look at the mechanics of it, is just staggering.
It really is brilliant but exhausting.
Right. The keepers deliberately paused the reproductive suppressants for the entire troop just to engineer an artificial baby boom.
I mean, think about the sheer burden they willingly took on. They accepted an avalanche of extra grueling work.
Yeah, the logistics of that.
It's massive. We're talking drastically increased food budgets, non-stop cleaning, round-the-clock medical care for multiple pregnant macaques and then their infants. And they did all of this just to create a peer group for Punch.
Because, I mean, if Punch is the only baby, 55 adult monkeys are hyper-focused on his every single mistake.
Exactly.
But if you suddenly flood the enclosure with, like, a dozen chaotic babies, the adult's attention is completely divided.
Right, they can't focus on just him.
Punch can make a social mistake like accidentally looking a dominant male in the eye and just slip away in the confusion of the toddler mob. He gets companions to safely learn those vital social cues through play, rather than through harsh punishment.
The empathy required to manipulate the demographics of an entire animal society just to save one fragile life. It's profound.
It really is.
But here's the major disconnect. The internet didn't see the complex biological strategy. The internet just saw an explosion of cute baby monkeys.
And it blew up. I mean, by March of 2026, 90,000 visitors swarmed this tiny municipal zoo.
It's hard to even picture.
Try to visualize that scale, you know? The
Right.
small local facility meant for, like, school field trips is suddenly overrun by tripods, ring lights, thousands of people clamoring to see the internet's favorite monkey.
Total chaos.
The online fame was entirely out of control. And that leads to the hammer drop. On June 29th, the zoo posted an announcement on X that racked up 5.6 million views.
Just massive reach.
Yeah, and the rule was, effective the very next day, June 30th, any zookeeper wearing a red armband was strictly off-limits for photography.
And the speed of that rollout is crucial to understand here.
Less than 24 hours notice.
Exactly. They established an undeniable visual boundary. The armband became the absolute trigger for enforcement.
It's basically putting up a strict VIP no-fly zone right in the middle of a public space.
That's a great way to describe it.
If you're just a casual guest who hasn't been following this whole saga online and you just show up to look at the animals, this feels incredibly jarring.
Oh, for sure. You take a selfie near the enclosure, a staff member walks by in the background, and suddenly you're getting yelled at or reported.
Right. It completely splinters the zoo into two distinct zones of engagement. The public spectacle you are actively encouraged to photograph, and the protected worker that you have to treat like a classified government secret.
And that abrupt splintering of the experience is what sent shockwaves through the fan base. It sparked this intense debate about whether the rule completely ruins the zoo experience.
Because it really impacts how you feel when you go.
We really have to examine the sharp contrast in reactions here. On one side, you have the casual guests who just feel like they're walking on eggshells all day.
Not a fun weekend outing.
Not at all. But on the other side, you have these dedicated long-term fans who feel deeply emotionally invested in Punch's survival.
Well, yeah, for months, those dedicated fans have been tuning in for interactive daily updates. They watched Punch take his first steps. They watched him bond with his caretakers. They knew the names of the staff.
They felt like they were part of it.
Exactly. When that intimate access was cut off overnight, the sense of loss was palpable. If you look at the international fan base, the alienation is intense.
Oh, the backlash was huge.
There was a supporter commenting all the way from Mexico who said they felt completely lost without their daily updates of Punch.
Like a part of their routine was just gone.
Right. Other fans actually threatened to boycott the zoo's content altogether because the situation had become too stressful for them. They were using words like heartbroken, stating they felt like Punch had been literally ripped away from them.
Which really makes you think about how this impacts the daily visitor experience on a psychological level.
Yeah.
I mean, people are walking around terrified of making a mistake.
Yeah, you see comments flooding the zoo's pages, calling the facility weird or rude, or saying the atmosphere now feels like a jail.
And that jail comparison highlights a very real fear driving the outrage.
How so?
Well, some fans actively argued that without public cameras rolling constantly, the zoo might hide the fact that Punch was being bullied.
Oh, wow, a cover-up conspiracy.
Exactly. There were rampant conspiracies that older monkeys were attacking him during feeding times, and the fans felt that by banning cameras, the zoo was orchestrating this cover-up to hide their inability to keep him safe.
Honestly, you know, when I first read about this, I thought the fans were being incredibly entitled. I mean, it's a zoo, not a reality show. But let me push back on my own assumption for a second, because there is a fascinating paradox here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Early on, the public actually advocated for Punch. They rallied around him when he was this helpless orphan. They felt a sense of ownership over his success. So from their perspective, isn't it somewhat natural that they feel entitled to see the humans caring for him?
I see where you're going with this.
Like, if you get emotionally invested in a multi-season reality show and the network suddenly blurs out half the main cast without any real explanation, you'd feel entirely cheated.
Oh, it is a completely natural human reaction to feel cheated when access you are accustomed to is suddenly revoked.
Exactly.
The parasocial relationship they built with Punch and his keepers felt very, very real to them. But that exact feeling of entitlement, that demand for constant access, is what created a profoundly dangerous environment on the ground in Japan.
Right, the reality on the ground.
While someone in Mexico is crying over lost TikTok updates, we have to look at what was actually happening to the real person holding the shovel in the enclosure.
Yeah.
Because the local visitors were telling a completely different story.
That's a huge point. The local visitors actually supported this ban, didn't they?
Overwhelmingly.
What were they seeing on a random Tuesday afternoon that the international fans glued to their screens just weren't seeing?
The locals were witnessing egregious nuisance behavior firsthand. Japanese commenters explicitly pointed out that tourists were constantly breaking rules, stalking the keepers, and completely ignoring prior warnings.
So they were causing real trouble.
Yes. The daily visitor experience had shifted far, far away from quietly observing nature. People were basically treating the entire zoo like a soundstage for farming content.
Oh, so instead of a family saying, look at this beautiful animal, it became content creators elbowing each other out of the way, shouting, "Let me get a viral video of the monkey holding the plushie for my feed."
Exactly. And the targets of those cameras weren't just animals. They were professionals doing incredibly intimate, messy, and sometimes dangerous labor.
Right. Wild animals are unpredictable.
Exactly. These keepers are shoveling enclosures, monitoring highly aggressive primate social dynamics, trying to protect a vulnerable infant. And they have smartphones constantly shoved inches from their faces.
That sounds like a nightmare.
The locals recognized that this behavior was stripping the staff of their basic dignity.
Well, yeah. Imagine trying to do a high-stakes job with a literal wall of glowing screens, broadcasting your every micro-expression to millions of people.
You'd be paralyzed.
If you've ever felt the panic of accidentally being in the background of someone else's vlog at the grocery store, multiply that by 1 million viewers, that is the baseline anxiety these keepers were forced to work under every single day.
And that physical harassment was compounded by a staggering psychological toll.
What else were they dealing with?
Remember the baby boom the keepers brilliantly engineered for Punch's kindergarten class?
Right, the biological strategy.
Well, the uninformed internet armchair critics didn't see the biological strategy. They just saw a sudden influx of babies, assumed the zoo had completely lost control of their breeding program, and loudly accused the facility of negligence.
Oh no, so the public tried to cancel them.
Worse, their relentless online complaints actually triggered a formal governmental audit by JIZA, which is the Japanese Association of Zoos and Aquariums.
You're kidding. I have to imagine an audit like that isn't just a quick health inspector walkthrough, right?
Far from it.
If they're trying to prove competence to a national board amidst a public scandal, they must be burying these already exhausted keepers in paperwork.
It is the definition of grueling. Imagine you are literally hand-feeding a vulnerable infant monkey, simultaneously monitoring an enclosure to break up fights among 50 adults, and a government auditor taps you on the shoulder demanding a 50-page spreadsheet.
That's insane.
The keepers had to abruptly pause their hands-on care just to write massive, meticulous husbandry manuals.
Just to appease internet trolls who don't even understand macaque biology. What even goes into a document like that during an emergency?
It requires detailing exact nutritional breakdowns, daily behavioral logs, genetic lineage tracking, and complex enrichment records, proving they are rotating scent trails and modifying climbing structures.
All while trying to keep Punch alive.
Exactly. They had to justify their every micro-decision on paper in the middle of a survival crisis, all while being filmed by tourists waiting for them to make a mistake.
Yeah, it is just infuriating. They are saving lives. And the very people claiming to love Punch are the ones making it impossible to actually care for him.
It's the ultimate irony.
But, they passed the audit, right?
Oh, they passed with flying colors because they are world-class professionals.
Thank goodness.
But the stress was entirely unsustainable. The breaking point had been reached. And this is where section manager Takashi Yasunaga stepped in with a pretty brilliant leadership maneuver.
What did he do?
He intentionally stepped into the social media spotlight himself. He became the very public face of the zoo to build what was described as an invisible barricade.
Oh, okay. So by stepping in front of the cameras himself, he absorbs all the public's demand for access.
Right.
And that allows the two specific keepers who are acting as Punch's surrogate mothers to be completely shielded from the spotlight.
Precisely. Yasunaga took the heat so his staff could focus purely on the animals. The red armband rule isn't just a sudden punishment for visitors. It is the physical manifestation of that invisible barricade.
That really changes the perspective. Having explored both the genuine heartbreak from the fans who feel alienated and the absolute undeniable necessity of protecting the staff from content farmers, we have to look at the long-term impact on the visitor.
It's a complex balance.
It is. Does this safety protocol ultimately destroy the guest experience? Like, does filtering out the viral spectacle hurt the zoo's popularity in the long run?
Well, it remains a massive debate in zoo management circles. Some analysts warn that this level of strictness lowers general visitor satisfaction.
I can see that. If people feel like they are constantly under threat of being reported for an errant photo, they might simply stop coming altogether.
Exactly. It also drastically increases security costs because staff now have to actually patrol the grounds and enforce the armband rule.
Right.
Furthermore, banning visitor videos completely kills the free social media marketing that put the zoo on the map in the first place.
Sure, but we have to look at the economic reality of the Ichikawa City Zoo to understand their true mission.
Right. Let's look at the numbers.
If I remember correctly from the sources, the entry fee is only 440 yen.
Huh.
That is less than $3.
It's incredibly cheap.
Right. So this facility is fundamentally a public service. It is meant for children's education and local community connection. It was never designed to be a profit-driven digital spectacle.
That's a great point.
They don't actually need viral marketing if that marketing fundamentally compromises their ability to care for the animals.
That context really changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the dedicated local fans absolutely understand the mission.
How are they reacting now?
Because of these strict rules, we are actually seeing a fascinating phenomenon of self-cleaning or self-policing among the community.
Wait, the locals are enforcing the rules themselves?
They are. Local fans have started using the hashtag #Saffron2, which essentially translates to hang in there, Ichikawa Zoo.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. They are voluntarily enforcing good manners online and in person. If an international fan complains about the rules or a tourist acts out, the community steps in to explain why the boundaries are necessary.
So they're protecting the zoo.
Exactly. It proves that setting strict, non-negotiable rules doesn't necessarily destroy a community. It can actually filter out the bad actors and build a far more respectful, dedicated visitor base.
It's basically like putting up a velvet rope around a famous painting in a museum.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Thanks. I mean, sure, it ruins the experience for the guy who wants to get an inch away to take a selfie. It restricts your physical access. But it is the absolute only way the museum can guarantee the painting isn't destroyed, ensuring everyone else can actually appreciate it for generations to come.
That hits the nail on the head.
So weighing the ultimate outcome here, does this strictness leave behind a community that actually cares about animal welfare?
If you look at the zoo's future plans, they are fully committing to welfare over spectacle.
How so?
Well, to appease the fans in Mexico and elsewhere who really miss Punch, the zoo is transitioning to official video distributions.
Oh, so they'll provide the updates themselves.
Exactly. They will provide high-quality updates, which gives the public access without exploiting the workers.
That feels like the perfect compromise for the visitor experience. But what about the animals? I mean, does the troupe benefit from the tourists being dialed back?
Immensely. Following the JKZ audit, the zoo is actually restricting future breeding to near zero.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the kindergarten class served its vital purpose. And now they're pivoting back to strict population management to reduce stress. Furthermore, the municipal council actually passed a supplementary budget.
That's great news.
It is. They're using those funds to massively expand the unseen back-of-house facilities.
Right. The quarantine areas and veterinary spaces that the public never even gets to see.
Yes. They are building more room to separate aggressive individuals without stressing the 56-member troop. They're shifting all their resources away from managing the immediate crisis of a viral baby and using this moment to build a deeply enriching permanent sanctuary for every single monkey.
Which means the actual zoo experience is getting vastly better for the animals, even if the visitors feel a bit restricted in what they can photograph.
Exactly. The visual spectacle for the tourists is absolutely diminished, but the foundational care and the safety of the facility are vastly improving.
So to pull all of this together, the new red armband rule undeniably alienates a certain type of casual visitor.
It definitely does.
It absolutely ruins the day for the content farmer looking for easy views. And yes, it breaks the hearts of those distant international fans who felt a deep, genuine connection to the keepers raising punch.
That loss is real.
It is real, but those restrictions on the daily visitor experience are not punishments. They serve as a vital psychological sanctuary for the human workers who are literally holding this fragile ecosystem together.
True sanctuary requires safety from harm. For Punch, safety meant a kindergarten class to buffer him from the physical violence of macaque society.
Right.
And for the caretakers, safety means a red armband to buffer them from the psychological violence of relentless digital surveillance.
It is a profound shift in how we have to think about engaging with public spaces, which brings us back to that stark warning armband waiting for you at the entrance gates.
It's a powerful symbol.
It really is. And I want to leave you with a heavy, overarching question to mull over long after this deep dive is done.
What's it at?
If the very people dedicating their entire lives to connecting us with nature need literal warning armbands just to protect themselves from the glare of our digital attention, what does that say about how we consume nature in the modern world? Are we loving these animals at the expense of the humans who keep them alive?